So, when it comes to group workshops for your piano parents, I want to start with why you might want to do this. Why is this even a good idea in the first place? Well, the number one reason for me, what motivated me to start this last year, and this is only my second year of doing this, so it's new, but it's something I'm hoping to keep in my studio calendar year upon year. What motivated me to include it last year was this mission that I'm on to even the playing field. And by that I mean I want to make it so that parents of who didn't study any music growing up have an equal footing with parents who have grade 8, who got to a high stage with music, who studied music in college even. I want all of their kids to be on an even playing field. I want them to have all the tools they need to help their kids. And at the moment, I don't think most studios are providing that. I don't think I am always, but that's what I'm aspiring to. So this parent workshop was partially a way to help with that, because I knew a lot of the parents that would come would be those who were really enthusiastic but didn't know how to support their child in practice, just didn't get it. And I was right about the particular parents who came. Some of them had studied music before, but a lot of the parents who came were actually, even within a couple, one studied music and one didn't, and the other parent was the one that came, the one that didn't study music. And they said to me it was because they feel like when their spouse is away, they can't help the kid as much as their partner can. And I thought that was really important. So that is my number one reason for things like this. And it's a once a year event. It's not a huge commitment, honestly, on my part for a whole year. And if it makes even the slightest difference in evening that playing field, it is worth it to me. Even if I don't get a 100%, even a 50% turnout, even if I only help a few of those parents who didn't study music to feel empowered to help their kid at home, that is worth it to me. The other reason why you might want to do this, and probably the one that occurred to many people first, was to create better practicers, right? We all want students who practice regularly and who practice well, and parents are a big, enormous part of that. So, hosting a parent workshop, if it can move the needle anyway in that direction, it's worth doing, isn't it? Does everyone else want better practicers? Hit the like button on this video if you're on board with that mission. I think we can all get on board with that. The third reason why I wanted to include this in my calendar is to get more invested parents. And I don't mean financially, of course. I mean, I want to have parents who are wholeheartedly in it with my studio specifically, who are on board with my mission, my why, what I'm trying to do as a music teacher. I don't want just parents who think, yeah, it's fine to send my child for piano lessons and that studio looks all right, or grand as we would say here. No, I don't want that. And that's fine. Some parents will have that attitude towards your studio, and that's okay. But as much as possible, we want to cultivate really invested parents who think of themselves as piano parents, music parents, who think of this as part of their family's identity, right? So that they're so much stickier, so much less likely to quit, and they're likely to get involved, to show up for things like this, to go that extra mile, to appreciate what you're doing and see all the things that you're doing for your students. So those are my whys. Let me know yours in the comments. I wanted to cover the area of schedule as well before we dive into the content for this group workshop for piano parents or music parents, really. Because one of the big concerns that will come up is the scheduling. What I think you need to do, the number one thing I want to say, is that you need to choose a time for this workshop and you need to just stick to it. Okay? So you're not going to suit everyone. And if you try to suit everyone, you're just going to end up frustrated because some of the people who you bent over backwards to suit don't end up coming. So you do need to make an executive call on this. You need to make the decision about when it will be. And sometimes you just don't have the flexibility and you're just going to have one time that you're able to do it and you're going to have to schedule it then. that's how it is for me this year, honestly. I have allotted 2 spaces for group workshops during my week. They are on Mondays at 5 after this slot right here, after you guys, and then Saturdays at 3 in between my big break in my teaching schedule there on Saturday afternoons. So that's it. Those were the 2 times I had available. I had to put this parent workshop in place of one of those group slots because that's when it fits and I can't do any other time. I'm not going to stay up until 9 p.m. and that's not going to help parents anyway. So, with that in mind, I thought today was the better slot. I thought more parents were likely to make the Monday at 5 time. And so I just went with that. Now, if you do have a bit more flexibility, I think it is a great idea to get some input from parents because, especially if, like me, you're not a parent yourself, you're not always in tune with what really works. You might make an assumption like, oh, after dinner would be great. And then you ask parents and they say, after dinner, we are all shattered. Or after dinner, we are really dedicated to this school reading project, which is across the whole school, where we read for an hour. It could be anything. But you don't know unless you ask, especially if you're not in that sphere yourself. And even if you are, you might not know what the parents in your studio think. So I think polling people is a great way to go. Just if you're going to do that, make sure to put in the caveat that you're going to go with whatever the majority chooses. Rather than saying, rather than leaving it open, because then people might expect you to accommodate all of the times that, that they need, that work for them. And you're going to need to just make a call because you can't do 50 billion of these. You can't do one for every parent. Maybe you can, but that's a whole other story and that's not what we're talking about today. So, a great way to do this is something like a Google Doodle. You just fill in the time. So you say Saturday at 3 p.m., Monday at 5 p.m. Pick the one that suits you and you just go with the most votes. It's as simple as that. By doing that, your parents are not committing to coming at that time. They're just saying that's the one that suits them or that all of them suit them or something like that. That's only if you have that flexibility and you can make all of those times work without it being horribly inconvenient for you and your family's schedule. Now, once you've chosen your time, if you're doing it this year, you're most likely doing it online. And even if you're doing it another time or you can be offline this year, maybe consider doing it online because the benefit of that is you can record it, and that's what I'm doing this year. So last year I did this in person. I had parents come to my house and I really liked that vibe. I think it's great. You can serve them coffee, you can have a little bit more of a gab, you can have more of a community feel. But if you're going to do it online, take full advantage of that format. You're not going to be able to serve people coffee and pastries. You're not going to maybe have the chatty atmosphere that you have in a studio, in a living room, anywhere like that. But you do have other benefits. So it comes back to all of the things to do with our online lessons and all of that. Make the most of the environment you're in. Don't try to make it look like the other thing. Don't insist everyone comes along with a cup of coffee and try to have them chat casually because Zoom interruption chat, it just doesn't work. I was talking about this with my mum the other day with her book club. There's like 10 or 12 of them in the room and most of them are like over 70s, but I don't think that's a big factor, honestly. That does affect the comfort level, but they can't interrupt each other. They can't say, no, I don't agree with you, because it just gets so chaotic and the Zoom camera's jumping around for people on that view and it's a mess. So don't try to make your parent workshop look like it would have done in person if it's online. Make it look more like a presentation followed by a discussion of some sort. That's what I'm doing. And take advantage of the benefit of having a recording and sending it to the other parents. Okay, not all of them will watch. I'm not going to pretend they will. But if even a few more get to digest that information, get that info from you, that's going to be worth it, isn't it? Because not everyone is going to be able to come along at the time you schedule. Okay, now let's talk about what to include. What do you think you would put in a group workshop like this? What would be the best topics to include? What would you want if you were going to get 100% attendance and everyone was going to be in rapt attention to you and was going to stay on you the whole time and take in everything you said. That's not what's going to happen, by the way. But if they were, what would you want them to know? What would you prioritize? Let's say you have 45 minutes, because you honestly are not going to keep people's attention for more than that in a presentation format. It's not going to happen. So 45 minutes, what do you want them to know? What are you going to talk to them about? I have a few things that I want to get across in this presentation every year, and then I have a special feature. So what I want to get across every year is I want to reiterate my studio philosophies in some way. I want to get across to them that we believe in opening all the doors of music to their children, that we bring together reading, comprehensive, great theory teaching, alongside creative skills, improvisation, arranging music, and that we aim to bring the two of those together. I want my parents to know about our thoughts on exams because that comes up and it sort of isn't relevant for a few years and parents just ignore it when I talk about that, and then suddenly it comes up with them because they haven't really taken in what I've said before in some cases. So I want to keep reiterating that and about how we will advise exams when we think they'll be beneficial rather than students pushing for them or parents pushing for them, because that leads to some pretty sticky situations. I also want to get across, in some cases, or at least last year I did, our approach to reading. You might like to cover any other common issues. The reason I chose last year to cover the approach to reading was I wanted to basically not single out any specific parent, but get across to everyone, really aiming at a specific parent who I knew would pick up on it, that we don't use mnemonics. And I'm not talking about, their child was really stuck and they came up with a solution. This is parents who really think they're trying to be, they are being helpful, and they're not, because then the kiddo gets confused between all the different systems and it's just a mess. So I did go through our reading process and why we teach the way we do. But any other common issue like that, like Megan says, they're using online resources in MMS. If that's something that comes across for you, and by the way, she's referring to My Music Staff by MMS. If that's coming across to you from parents, if they're just not using the things that are available, if you think they're confused about something, this is a great format to get it across to them, because it's not just that it's more efficient for you, which it is, because you're not one-on-one explaining these things to people. And it's not just that it's outside of emails, as Megan mentioned earlier, because people are overwhelmed by emails and this is a different format, so that's really good. It's also really useful because of what I mentioned with the reading. You're saying it in this obvious group format. And so when you say, I wanted to go through My Music Staff because people have been confused about how to access things, people don't feel singled out. They don't feel embarrassed that they don't understand the tech, or they don't feel told off, right, about not using whatever resource you've put out there. You're making it really clear that this is training for everyone and you're just going through it as a matter of course, which I think is really useful in that format. The other thing I will be including is an interesting featured topic going forward. This is my plan anyway. Like I said, it's only the second year, but this year I will be doing it and hopefully going forward next year as well. So I essentially pick some kind of a theme for my studio for the year. Now this isn't a theme like circus. I pick an overarching theme for myself, really, for my professional development and for how I'm approaching little bits and pieces in lessons. It's difficult to describe without giving you an example of a theme. So for last year, my theme that I wanted to improve in how I was teaching was active listening. I was focused on little ways throughout the year that I can cultivate more active listeners. By focusing on that throughout the year, it gives me opportunities here or there to include more listening assignments, to find a way to make it more accessible for students to access the tracks, all of this stuff, right? So it's little touches throughout the year. It's not something students would be particularly aware of. It's more something I communicate to parents, and really just something for my own focus in my development as a teacher. This year, it doesn't mean I'm not ever paying attention to active listening, by the way, but this year my new theme is grit. And so I've decided to put this in the presentation to parents as well. A lot of it is really about this idea of grit. I mentioned grit and growth mindset last year at the parent workshop, and I sort of mentioned them in passing. I was basically saying, it's like this idea of grit and growth mindset, the work of Carol Dweck and Angela Duckworth, and I got complete blank stares. So of course I explained myself briefly, but I was actually expecting that at least like half of the parents would go, oh yeah, that TED Talk, and nobody did. So I was quite surprised at that, and I think it's a really important topic for music parents in particular to understand. So I will be diving into grit and growth mindset in the discussion, and I can do more on that here for teachers as well, but this is specifically directed towards parents. So it's about how to develop growth mindset or grit with your kiddos, and little touches that I'm going to be planning really for my teaching. So I'm really communicating it from these are the changes that I'm making to my teaching to promote this, and this is how it's coming through as my theme of the year, and this is how it could bleed through into how you discuss music at home or other things, and how you frame things for your kids. So that is my fun theme, and that's going to take up a chunk of my presentation. I do think it's useful to have something like that, because otherwise this could get really stale really fast. I know it's a year in between them, but it'll feel stale to you, right? And that's important, that you have something to keep it fresh, and you have a reason to say to parents to come back again year upon year. Laurie said, oh my god, I just thought of something. Every year I write a welcome back letter to parents that talks about some of these topics. Yeah, so I include this in the newsletter as well, this kind of theme that I have for myself as a teacher. I include it in the lifelong learning section, which is where I talk about my own professional development, and I usually give a list of I did this many webinars and this many this and this many that, because that's usually pretty impressive to look back on. And then I also mention my theme for the upcoming year. So that's a great thing to include in written stuff as well, and it can just give you some direction, especially when you've been teaching for a little while. Yeah, I was surprised too, Julie. Honestly, I was really like, what, really? And then I didn't want to say it like that, because that would sound like parent guilt. Like, how can you be a parent and not know about grit? But yeah, I was quite surprised. Maybe in the US or Canada, maybe it would be further spread. It might be an Irish thing. I don't know. I am so in the US in my headspace all the time that sometimes I think things are in the zeitgeist and they're not here. They are over there. So that does happen. You also want to include the other section of content is going to be plenty of time for discussion. Now, this is especially if you're in person. I am going to allot some time at the end of my Zoom call. I don't have anything after it, right? So it's not like I'm having to save time for this. I can stay on for quite a while. However, I do think you should save at least a chunk of time for parents to have a chat, because they don't often have the opportunity to come together with other parents of music students and see the similar struggles. And that was a really big thing for our workshops last year, was the chat between them, and just the opportunities to say, yeah, you know what, that's really hard, or my kid does that too, or my kid also looks up YouTube tutorials and doesn't tell Nicola about them, that kind of thing. So I think that's really important. I do think it's going to be harder online to get people chatting. I can only report back after I've done it and let you know how it goes, but I don't anticipate it being easy. I do think it's important, whether you're online or in person, to have some questions to get the ball rolling. So ask them about common struggles, and you can even go around individually as a way to get it started, so that everyone said something and they've kind of broken the ice with themselves. What are they struggling with in terms of their child's practice, or what is their current practice routine? That can be a good one, because it can really open things up. A lot of ahas were had last year when one parent said, oh, we've brought back in scales before school. That's one of her favorite things. They come back to it again and again. It kind of goes in cycles, but they sometimes have this thing of scales before school, right? So they're getting it done before they go into school in the morning. Get the scales done. You've already got some practice in for today, and the scales are out of the way, and that feels great. So little things like that can spark the discussion, so do have a few of those ready, and don't be too worried if everyone doesn't, chat the whole time. It's not going to be the case that it's going to be a super amazing vibe. If you do get that, awesome, but don't expect it to be that way. Definitely be prepared to drive a lot of the conversation yourself and have notes at the ready for that. Okay, awesome chat coming in, everyone. Keep adding your ideas about parent workshops and what you might have done in the past and anything like that. We can come back for more Q&A. I am going to switch over to my screen to show you our 2 website reviews of today, and then we'll return to our topic. So the first one is Amy, who I think is live, so that should be fun. So we are going over here. Yes, here we are. Let me turn off the logo so that's not confusing. There we go. Okay, so straight away when we arrive here, we see a big button that says register online lessons. I would put register for Amy on that just to... Ooh. Let's just refresh that and try it again. I'm not sure. That was just a glitch on our end. Yeah, no, it was. Okay, so that's great that that's front and center. I think it's really clear. Now, we have these photos at the top here, Amy. I would love to see better resolution on these. I know I go on and on about having real students, and that's great, and it does tend to mean, less professional photos, and I think that's fine. But they are a bit pixelated. So if you can improve the resolution on that, and I would actually go for... Oh, by the way, Amy actually specifically asked me to look at the photos, so we will be focusing on them extra. If you can get one that will go full width instead of having the 2 side by side, I think that would be better, Amy, as well. One full width, really high resolution for that. It doesn't have to be enormous, but it should be like, to give you an idea, 1600 pixels wide at a resolution of 72. That'll make sense to you when you go into a photo editor if it doesn't already. Now, online via Zoom, sign up today, sign up here. Okay, I think there's actually, for once, too many calls to action. So I would just, this one is fine, leave this one, and then move these ones down the page and actually just make them the same. So choose your call to action, the thing you want people to do, and don't vary it. Just keep it the same. Whatever you want them to do, you want to keep reiterating that. It feels a bit silly when you put it together, but if you think about someone's experience with the site, they're scrolling down, it does help to just reiterate the same thing. So that's what I would prefer. Corey is differing with me on the 2 photos side by side, which, all of this stuff is open to opinion. So great to have that too. If you love the photos side by side, Corey does too. So you guys are 2 against 1 right now. Okay, so I think the main thing this homepage needs, Amy, is more text and a little bit of tidying of the calls to action. So just more writing in general. Let's have a look at the about page. That's always an important one. Okay, I think we've got a few too many colors and fonts throughout. So this seems to be your feature font for titles, and I think that's fine. Choose that, and then one more. Like this bit looks really weird, the font. I don't know what's happening there. It seems like maybe just that one is not bold or something. So yeah, just make sure you're choosing only 2 fonts throughout your site and pick just 3 colors. So like a black and then 2 fun colors, and that's it. Services. Watch your spacing there. Oh, I think that's just built into the font. It just looks a bit funny. Okay, I love all the photos, Amy. Can you, oh yeah, I was thinking this earlier on a different page. Can you cut the top of this off? Just because this is not very deep, the photo space, it would be great to see more of their faces. So if you just crop the top of that off and scooch it up, I think we'll see more, because that looks so fun. I love it. Really awesome. And some great testimonials. Again, just sprinkle these throughout the site, as well as having a testimonial page. So you can put some on your homepage, you can repeat them throughout the site. That would be great. But since you asked specifically about the photos, I have to say they're all fantastic. I love how real they are. I love the selection. I mean, oh my gosh, so fun. I would love to study here. This looks great. Love all the silly faces, and it really gives the vibe of your studio. So well done on all of that, Amy. We're also going to have a quick look at Lydia Bell. So this is her site, and I really like the simple logo on the home page. I think that looks good. It communicates that you're a music teacher. I know I'm in the right place. Now, I would prefer to see smiling students, as I always say, like we saw in Amy's there. I would prefer to see some smiling students in this spot instead of just a piano. I think the treble clef communicates music to everyone and everyone gets what it is, but a student at a piano would be better, or a bunch of students, a collage of photos or something like that there would be awesome. Or yourself, if that's more the vibe you want to give off. Good that you have this text here. I think that's great. Now, register your interest is not the strongest call to action. So you may not want to let people sign up or anything like that. You may not want to say register, but can you come up with something a little bit more compelling than register your interest? Because even sign up for the waiting list, if that's what it is, might be better for that. Let's see what happens when we arrive there. Oh, you are accepting new students. Yeah, I'm not sure about that wording. So apply to lessons, something like that. A bit stronger, a bit more like about getting started, action based. Love all the content, love the layouts. These feature throughout, and they're a lovely little touch there. That's great. Again, student testimonials. Sprinkle these throughout. If you can get photos from people, do that so that you can have the photos. That's really much more powerful than just text. But if you can't, no worries. Try to do that in future. But do use the text throughout your site, not just on one page. About Lydia. Who am I? Oh, great. Could we put these on the homepage, Lydia? I think that would be much better than your current piano thing there. If you don't have something else, I think this slider as the homepage slider would be awesome. Yeah, otherwise I think it's looking really strong. Well done. Great work, Lydia. So I would just tighten up that call to action, make it a little bit stronger. Maybe move this, because it is a little bit confusing if you can put that somewhere else. And then, like Corey's talking about in the chat, just make sure the photos are more consistent. And the homepage image there, if we could swap that out as well. I think, yeah, should be fantastic. It's already fantastic. It can be even better with just a few tweaks there. So well done, Lydia, on that. And well done to everyone who submits, by the way, to have their website reviewed. I know I can't get to all of them. That's the nature of it. We can only do 2 per show. But it's great that so many of you have put together studio websites to the point where you want to share them and you want some feedback on them. And I think that's fantastic. And I'll continue adding 2 per week. If you're not sure, you can add your website to be featured if you are interested in that. And I will pick at random. That is in the Vibrant Music Studio Teachers group on Facebook. That's where you'll find info about that. Okay, awesome. Yeah, Laurie, that's exactly what I want to cover in this workshop, is more concrete ways that we can work on developing it and why it's a good thing that music is hard, not a bad thing. I think that's really what a discussion on grit can get across, is this is an opportunity. It's almost a gritty message about grit, isn't it? I've just realised, very meta. This is an opportunity to learn how to be gritty rather than this is too hard and, it's a struggle. It's going to make everything else easier. Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you all so much for joining me today. So I am going to go and get ready for my own parent workshop right now because it's in a few minutes as I record this live. Thank you all so much for joining me. It's been awesome to hang out with you once again. Before I let you go, let me let you know what's coming up. So next week, we're going back to you, away from parents, and we're talking about fighting imposter syndrome. How do we wrestle with our own imposter syndrome? Because trust me, so many of us have it. And how can we move on from it? How can we deal with it and stop it from getting in the way of our success and our progress as teachers? And last thing, before you go, please, 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 will you go to colourfulkeys.ie/survey if you haven't already. We launched our annual survey yesterday. I promise you that SurveyMonkey tells me it will take less than 10 minutes to complete, so that's their official time estimate. It's only 9 minutes, I think. 9 minutes of your time. And it is super duper important that we get as many teachers as possible. So if you haven't filled it in, please go fill it in. If you have already filled it in, will you share it for me? Will you just share it with a teacher friend, send it to someone that you know who teaches, or just post it on Facebook just in case, or post it in a group to get people to fill it in? It would really mean the world to me. If you didn't see it last year, once we compile the data from the survey, we share it. So we put together a really awesome report that makes all that data come to life and really talk to you and gives us fantastic insights into our industry. And it is going to be even better this year. I just know it. We've tweaked the wording on the questions based on last year. We've tweaked the questions we're asking. We're also asking about the current pandemic and teaching online and stuff like that, which you'll see in the survey. So it is really going to be so informative, and the more data we can get, the more informative it will be. So please fill it out if you haven't already, and if you have, please share it with someone who you think could also benefit from this data and has 10 minutes to fill it out. Thank you all so much again for joining me. It is awesome